To everyone else, this is a desk. But to you, it's a launch pad. Your starting block. This ain't a desk. This is opportunity.
Switch to Boost Mobile and get the Coach Prime Moto G 5G on us at your local Boost retailer. Moto G 5G on us when you switch with ID verification and new Unlimited Plus or Unlimited Premium plan activation. Taxes extra. All prices, fees, features, functionality, and offers are subject to change without notice. See participating dealers for details.
When the energy is high and the music is right, pushing past your limits becomes that much easier. Take a reggaeton run or strength class on the Peloton tread, and you'll quickly see why these are the workouts you've been searching for. Every day brings new challenges from expert coaches who train and speak the same language as you do. Level up your workouts with Peloton Tread. Find your push, find your power. Peloton. Visit onepeloton.com.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes per detail.
Surviving Reality contains explicit content full of snark and sarcasm that may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello and welcome to Surviving Reality.
I'm Corey.
And I'm Carly. And today we are here recapping the entire Season 7 of Love is Blind in Washington, D.C. Was that too formal? Did we just say just D.C.?
I think, Washington, D.C., you're putting the respect on it here. More respect than this season deserves, I think. More respect than most of the couples gave each other throughout this entire process.
That seems to be the consensus that the audience has reached about this season, which is interesting to me. We have not watched every season of Love is Blind. I didn't feel like it was that bad.
I usually don't get into it, and then most of the time the pods, it's too much. And I know there's some people who just watch the pods, or people just wait until they get out of the pods and then watch that stuff. So there's different approaches maybe to take on it. I'm glad we did not recap episode by episode. I think I would have lost my mind. It was very reminiscent of our Married at First Sight season that we recapped. I think that was season 11 in New Orleans.
Where it's like 35 episodes long.
Well, that was, yeah, and they're 2 hours each. So it felt like the same amount of airtime, and we got the same amount of information in the end.
I would love to know what people dislike so much about it. Is it just that the cast of characters was greatly flawed?
I think it was probably the cast wasn't that great. And then also you only had, spoiler alert, 2 relationships make it out of this.
Okay, though, I have to admit, like, I'm not here to watch people fall in love. I am here for the juicy stuff that happened on TikTok.
So, well, then this is the crime that you didn't invite Leo and Brittany.
We will talk about that because they did come to the reunion.
I mean, let's talk about it. Yeah,
all right.
We've got.
You want to get into it?
This is
start with them.
It's happening. Yeah, because I think this is the jumping off point that's going to get things started.
So Leo and Brittany. Leo, the
Rolex wearing,
very wealthy art dealer. I think that's the only intro that he would want us to give about himself.
I feel like, yeah, he's the art dealer that they did that Netflix documentary about, where it was the lady who was selling the fakes because she was just authenticating everything. Was that his mom? Did we confirm?
It was also on Netflix, wasn't it?
Yeah. Thank you, Netflix.
Maybe that's how they cast him. I don't know.
Probably. Yeah, that's the connection. Family
That's
relation.
a wild accusation.
Yeah, well, we'll throw it out there. We'll see what sticks.
I know there were a lot of people questioning, like, is he actually that rich? Is he making this up? Apparently, it seems like he is, although I did see some conflicting information online about how he had something to do with, like, the combination of art and bongs. I really don't know much more than that.
Art and bongs? Like head shop
That was
bong?
all that he has achieved in his lifetime thus far. That he is part of a long lineage of art dealers, but that his resume is not quite as impressive.
He's more at the head shop sort of avenue there. Okay. Well, I mean, I'm not going to knock it.
What about Brittany?
I feel like that would have been a better opener than for him. I feel like
to tell everyone that he's...
His bong story? I feel like that would be more relatable, more approachable.
Do you think he would have ended up matching with Brittany if that had been the case?
Well, I mean, he did match with Brittany eventually this season.
But do you think that the bong would have added or taken away from the authenticity of their relationship?
If Brittany knew how many dollar signs were behind those bongs, I think she could get into it. And I'm not going to trust his financial situation until we see a Hammer financial score. I think that's what I'm going to have to deem everybody's financial status on.
So this was like the most ironic part of the entire thing, was that Leo was so paranoid about coming into this experiment and finding somebody who only wanted him for his money. But then he picked the one person who came into the pods talking about their history of dating athletes and rock stars and people who had accumulated quite a bit of wealth.
Expensive to date, too, I think was the label that she kept using for herself. It was doomed from the start. So then for them to not even get the invite to Cabo was very interesting as well. But I feel like that's the biggest shame. Like, that was the huge flaw in production this season. You would have to know by watching this relationship develop that they're not going to get married. Clearly, we know they're not getting to the altar. But we need to watch this fall apart as it's happening. So I feel like that was the real missed opportunity, was maybe don't invite them to Cabo, but send them somewhere, anywhere else, wherever you'd like to go.
Anywhere with cameras.
I'm going to send some cameras there and make sure that we film it.
They tried to explain it away at the reunion that they're just so serious about making a show where people fall in love that they cut them from going to Cabo because they didn't see that it was realistic that they would walk down the aisle. I think the truth of it is they didn't have the budget for 7 weddings.
Well, they should have known that they weren't going to need to pay for 7 by the end of it. I think. Yeah, I think they would have been surprised.
Come on, though. We got the details because they did go on a trip together, even though they didn't end up going with the rest of the couples to Cabo. And on this trip, they decided that they were better suited as friends and not romantic interests, which I think we all kind of saw coming from how the reveal went.
Yeah, the reveal was awkward, very strange to see these two people pretending to be human around each other for the first time. It was very strange. But then Brittany's litmus test for any relationship was a vacation, and they did not survive that, as Leo kept trying to take sips of her drinks, even if they ordered the same thing, because this probably bothered her and she didn't say anything. And so then the next time they would go to have drinks, she just ordered whatever he ordered to test it out to see. But no, he was still sipping off of her drink. He was baby birding off of whatever she was ordering.
So he's not just trying to experiment with something different than what he ordered.
Yeah, I feel like that was probably her thought process of, okay, let's take that off the table and see if this is still something that needs to be addressed. And clearly it was.
That is a very forward thing to do when you've just met someone. Just to reach across the table and take a sip of their drink and put it back down.
Joey doesn't share food, and that is grounds for anything that you need to end this relationship immediately. I don't think I could be friends with anyone who's doing that, who's just grabbing stuff from my plate or from my drink. I don't think I can support that.
An invasion of your personal space.
Yeah, that's not going to do it for me.
They did address the fact that he was very close to not picking Brittany.
Well, yeah, he was leaning towards Hannah. He was bending over backwards, trying to get, he was bending over forwards.
He was twisting himself into a pretzel on top of a pillow.
Throwing himself around the room in the pod.
Okay. That is another crime. How did they not show the footage of him rolling around on the floor? Because the best part of it is realizing that these women had no idea what was going on the other side of the wall.
Oh, they've all seen it now.
Now they have, yeah.
And I feel like Leo has watched the footage more than anyone else has. I feel like he is half the views on Netflix right now for season 7.
What did you think of his pasta or steak comparison? That picking between them was such a hard decision.
That felt like an analogy that Steven, I would have expected to have him come up with.
It really hit home for me, I got to tell you. As a person who experiences an immense amount of anxiety when it's time to order at a restaurant, I knew exactly what he was trying to describe.
This was way too stereotypical, though. He's leaning into all the negative stereotypes. We can't support this.
What do you want to say about the looks? Anything? Because we're going to talk about it for every couple. I think I realized that I'm officially old. I've reached middle age because I did not understand a lot of the fashions going on. But TikTok loved them.
A lot of the dresses seem like cleavage when I was growing up. It used to be a top-down sort of system. But now it seems like we're starting at the middle and we're working our way up. It's the under boob is what we're getting hit with.
There was a lot of it. I would say Brittany was serving just a lot of boob in general.
She was like oiled up though.
It was giving Pamela Anderson.
Was it bronzer that was on there?
There was quite a bit of baby oil and bronzer, I'm pretty sure. They were very sculpted.
Yeah, she wasn't in Cabo, but I would like to see how many rounds of the pressure washer it took to clear off the couch after she got up.
Like a Housewives reunion?
Like a Housewives reunion. Behind the scenes.
Well, who do you want to talk about next? Should we, you mentioned Steven. Should we venture on to Steven and Monica?
Oh, Steven and Monica. I think Steven had a look. No socks.
Okay.
But he's got his
whitest ankles I have ever seen.
But he's got his Malcolm X glasses on.
I don't know. He came into this reunion knowing that he had to save face.
He was behind the 8 ball. Let's put it that way.
He was doing a lot of 8 balls during filming.
He was behind the 8 ball. The 8 ball was in him, around him.
A lot of questions about Steven. Let's just start there.
Why didn't we do a breathalyzer at the sleep study? Because I love how we had to call into question the sleep study, sleep apnea.
Let's catch everyone up on that.
Oh, well, okay.
So the demise of Monica and Steven's relationship was that he did something that he warned her he may do in this relationship, which is cheat on her, because he has done it in the past. He was very upfront about that in the pods. And he's a really good, is he a good talker? He is a talker.
He's a quantity, no, he's a quantity,
not quality.
Not quality sort of talker. Bullshitter.
Now, Monica didn't look at that as a red flag because she saw honesty in Steven, which was an improvement from men that she's dated in the past.
Normally, people would cheat on her and wouldn't even have the decency to admit it. So she was more enthralled with Steven in his honesty and being upfront. Anytime somebody says there is no lock screen on my phone because if I'm doing anything wrong, you should catch me doing it, it's not great. That's probably not a good take to have.
I think that their relationship already had started to crumble pretty much immediately after they met one another. They didn't see eye to eye on designer handbags.
Right,
we had the conversation of never buy me a Kate Spade bag. I'm going to need something
well, he was thinking
a bit more luxury than that.
Yeah, he was thinking that Kate Spade was designer, luxury, top of the line.
The best of the best.
Yeah. And that wasn't really aligning with the expectations for Monica.
The flowers.
Flowers. We talked about flowers for probably 3 days, 4 days of actual on-screen time.
That was kind of where it started. And then it evolved to the sleep study night.
So at the sleep study, there was the text exchange that Monica became aware of, and clearly there was some kinky stuff, some fetish stuff that was swirling about. I just don't understand how she was saying he got drunk at a sleep study.
No, that was his initial excuse.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is like that was the story that he was presenting. I don't know if I'm pretty sure. I haven't been involved in a lot of sleep studies. I don't think they let you get drunk at a sleep study, is my understanding.
No, he was trying to make an excuse for his behavior.
I think that was a way for him to distance from a stupid decision that he knew he was embarrassed about and that he had been caught now.
I gotta say, his first defense, a lot better than what he went with at the reunion, which was that this woman texted him. It was a normal conversation to start. Then it evolved to something a little kinky. And he almost let this demon get the best of him. But then he didn't. So he was so proud of it that he didn't delete the texts and he kept them. And that's how Monica ended up finding them.
So, I mean, I guess it's the emotional infidelity. It's you're texting someone inappropriate things. You know you shouldn't be having these conversations. He didn't bring it up, or did he? He had told her?
She happened to look at his phone.
Okay.
And
so you got caught. And so that's where now you get to come to the conclusion that you made this big decision for yourself. You made the good call, the right call to not act on these things. But we just talked about some pretty heinous shit for a little while there.
Which we did not get the details on.
We didn't. And that's the real crime here. Again, also, I'm not taking Steven at his word. So when we're seeing that photo of him at the sleep apnea study, I'm almost inclined to just believe that he hooked himself up to all this stuff and just had all these cables and wires and tape that he staged.
It's that meme where you're using your earbuds, the wires to the earbuds to act like you're in the hospital. Have you ever seen that?
Oh, well, it sounds like something that Whitney would do from Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. And do a dancing TikTok in front of it. He's breathing a lot better now, guys. But that was my first thought when they brought that picture up. I said, this seems off because there wasn't a lot going on in the background. It was just kind of a nondescript pillow behind him.
Did you expect more like machinery?
I need to see some hard machinery that's happening behind there. Some hard calculations, some hard data.
Some doctors, nurses.
Something. Yeah, somebody else in the room.
Hospital staff.
Present, some staff who can sign off on this.
I like that you assumed it was a sleep apnea study.
I think he said that he has sleep apnea.
Oh, does that explain why the pupils were 2 different sizes for a lot of the season?
Yeah, I don't think it fully explains.
There was someone who said it could have been the lights. Now, you have experience with lighting.
I think I had said that.
Oh, I got that info from you?
Yeah.
Never mind.
A lot of people think it's cocaine. That is what it really comes down to, if we're going to be completely honest.
I'm so glad we didn't have to watch more of them, really, because I couldn't hear about the flowers anymore.
Their arguments aren't even entertaining either, because now you have given Monica the high ground in this argument. And
you're not helping it by saying I had a moment of weakness.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like she is completely valid in everything that she says. And so she's going to take that and she's going to wring that chamois forever. Like, she's just that type of person where once she gets something over you, she's going to lord that over you.
Well, that's kind of her contribution from this season of the show, which was asking him to Venmo her on his way out.
Yeah, and it felt like it's those petty things. And sometimes the petty can be entertaining, but I feel like even her stuff is not entertaining.
I wanted to know how much he had to Venmo her.
Yeah, let's bring up the receipts. Yeah, transaction history for that. Let's take a look.
Can you write me an expense report and then I will respond to your Venmo within the next 30 days. Where do we go from here? Who would you like to talk about next?
We could do Garrett and Taylor.
Sure, let's
because that's
cross
easy peasy.
them off the freaking list.
Easy peasy.
All right, obviously, the most boring couple, maybe the most normal couple that we had on this cast.
They had some moments during the season. At the reunion, it was very typical response sort of things and just moving along. They're very communicative and considerate of each other and all of that boring shit that's terrible for television. Good for them. Great. But, I mean, it's boring TV.
I do think we have to start with the fact that it is pretty insane that in the pods, they had that whole interaction where Garrett was seemingly terrified of her being afraid to reveal her ethnicity to him.
Never addressed that again.
I feel like a lot of people kind of forgot that happened because in the grand scheme of things, these two ended up having the most normal relationship of everyone.
They had the blow-up fight where it was Garrett texting the ex who had reached out to him, and that was a whole complicated issue because then he wasn't being completely forthcoming with all of the information. Taylor kind of found stuff out.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, it was kind of a rocky situation.
So partway through the season, they have this whole text thing that goes down. An ex-girlfriend who I guess occasionally talks to him sent him a text. And he claimed he didn't know how to respond, so he just liked her text.
Which is weird.
Which was weird enough. That's the first thing he tells Taylor. Later on, when they're with the rest of the cast, he ends up telling some of the other... Who were they with? Do you remember?
I think it was Tyler and Ashley at the table with them.
He reveals more, which is that he actually responded. And this is after Taylor has already been very upset with him, finding out about the whole situation.
And asking repeatedly, please tell me everything that happened about it, so that way we're upfront, we're on the same page, and we can move forward from this. And he continued to tell her he did not respond. There was no further communication. It was just the reaction to the text that was sent, and that was it. But then he slips up in conversation. He's explaining that, yes, there was a response that was sent, and there was communication from that.
I thought that what he said back to her made it sound better. Like, he did respond to her and say, I met somebody. I'm not interested in talking to you anymore. I don't know why you wouldn't have led with that when you initially told her.
Yeah, like it doesn't feel appropriate to have this sort of conversation. We don't know what it was. It probably wasn't as spicy as Steven's
I don't think Garrett gets that.
I don't think so. Yeah, it's about what fish she caught or something more recently, and she's asking him to identify it for her.
Deep sea fishing?
So yeah, deep diving here. And so I feel like that was probably the bigger part of it, is that Taylor's still finding things out while they're talking about this more, and she was already asking him to be upfront and honest and come clean about the whole situation. So that was where the biggest rift that came up in their relationship.
They pretty quickly got over that, and then I felt like the show was really grasping to come up with some type of conflict for them, where then they leaned into their parents.
And it was the moving storyline then, because they're based in Washington, D.C., she is planning to move to San Diego, which is at the complete opposite end of the country. So it would be a big shift, to say the least, for Garrett in that moment, which we do find out in the reunion, too, was that was the plan. That was what they were doing. And then they've kind of had to reevaluate that, since that's been a hard adjustment for Garrett.
So they're moving all the way from Fredericksburg to Washington, D.C., which I imagine is a very short car ride.
Well, closer than San Diego, for sure.
For sure. I think the most interesting part of their season was meeting his mother, who resembles Steven Tyler.
Very much so, yeah. I'm the one that jaded you.
She seemed very unsure about them until they talked about having science tattoos.
Yeah. And then it was like it was meant to be.
Their parents were also married on the 13th. That's their anniversary.
That was weird.
And then they got married on the 13th.
Both of their parents
Yes.
had been married on 13th, and then they got married on the 13th. So that was strange. Good luck, though. Good luck, babe.
The wedding dress, I think we have to talk about it because we spent a lot of time trying to figure out what was going on there.
Yeah, because I mean, I wasn't even a huge fan of the trying on.
It was a very simple dress. The most interesting thing about it was probably the sleeves being, I don't know, they're like a little droopy.
Droopy? Droopy sleeves? And I don't think that's
I don't have all the bridal fashion terms.
I don't think that's an adjective you want to use for a wedding dress.
Well, you know what? Oops. I'm getting very
I know, yeah, you're
worked up
punching
over
the mic over there. Good Lord.
You know what? The dress, it looked much better before they altered it into what she made it into.
She turned it into a mullet dress.
Yes, it was a short, although I don't know, it was like a short dress.
Uh-huh.
But then there was a long piece over the back of the dress.
Which makes it like mullet in the sense of hair, but I guess for a dress, it's kind of like a reverse mullet because it is business in the back and then party in the front. because the front is shorter
It's
from
true.
a dress perspective.
Technicality
But
there.
from a mullet perspective, though, the business is in the front and then the party is in the back.
I did not love what she did to it. I know that everyone's talking about her fashion sense. Maybe I'm just not understanding the latest bridal trends.
I'll tell you, it was the best dress that she tried on of the three. Was there
I don't
three?
remember the others.
The other ones were so bad.
There usually is 3.
They were really, really bad. Well, that's on Say Yes to the Dress. So they
That's
showed
on
us 3.
everything. That's about as much as they think the audience can mentally handle.
It's all I can mentally handle, so I appreciate that.
The only other thing I can really think to say about them at the reunion was we need to stop giving jokes to the writers of this show, because everyone was talking about the very obvious glow up that Garrett has had since they filmed this show last year. And there was a lot of speculation that it was because he and Taylor were obviously still together and she has greatly impacted his fashion sense. So there was a joke on TikTok about it being Taylor's version, which Nick Lachey proudly announced as though it was original material, the top of the show.
Between that and then, naming off a bunch of Taylor Swift songs as part of his questions that were going out to Garrett. So there were a couple of considerations there, I suppose. The writers were not on strike this season.
I don't know. I think ChatGPT may have written a lot of the material.
Let's be clear.
Ooh, I think I'm going to go to Nick and Hannah.
Okay.
Or do we need to talk about Ramses and Marissa before we go to Nick and Hannah?
I mean, those are both pretty good shit shows that we could probably get into. I feel like I'm a little bit more heated about Nick and Hannah.
All right. Well, let's do them and then we'll do Ramses and Marissa.
To everyone else, this is a desk. But to you, it's a launch pad. Your starting block. This ain't a desk. This is opportunity.
Switch to Boost Mobile and get the Coach Prime Moto G5G on us at your local Boost retailer. Moto G5G on us when you switch with ID verification and new unlimited plus or unlimited premium plan activation. Taxes extra. All prices, fees, features, functionality, and offers are subject to change without notice. See participating dealers for details.
When the energy is high and the music is right, pushing past your limits becomes that much easier. Take a reggaeton run or strength class on the Peloton tread, and you'll quickly see why these are the workouts you've been searching for. Every day brings new challenges from expert coaches who train and speak the same language as you do. Level up your workouts with Peloton Tread. Find your push, find your power. Peloton. Visit onepeloton.com.
So Nick and Hannah, I don't even really know how to start this.
It's been a transition. It's been an adjustment, I think, a journey for their relationship. Well, thinking back from like the pods to them meeting to then them working towards a wedding and then breaking things off eventually. And then the reunion was a whole other ball game, I think, for me as well.
So first impressions, I did not like Nick D.
No, not at all.
Full of bullshit. The type of guy who flirts with you in a bar.
Sleazy. He was sleazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
it was
swarmy.
It was not giving, I'm here with a genuine interest to find a long-term partner.
Right. Yeah. This was better than being in my parents' basement.
But all the girls were eating it up. They loved talking to him.
I don't know if they weren't like, I don't know if they enjoyed it. I feel like it was, it was a break. It was either that or.
I think it was a confidence boost. Well, I guess in comparison to talking to Leo.
If you go talk to Leo.
Or Tim. Tim was spending a lot of time talking about himself.
And Steven too, because Steven would just talk and talk.
Like the guys, it was a shallow well.
Yeah, because then Garrett, there was only one woman he was connecting with, and thank God he found her, because none of these other ladies would have any interest in any of his fish photos.
So red flags were up for me about Nick. I honestly felt that way until once they got to Cabo together. And then I completely turned on Hannah. And this is going to be a heavy Hannah hatred section.
Oh boy.
So prepare yourself.
She was yucking his yum.
Okay, that's
on a lot
gross.
of the.
I don't love that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. On a lot of that.
he misrepresented himself quite a bit in the pods. He compared himself to Henry Cavill. He said that he was an ex-professional football player, which I guess is like partially true, but there were assumptions made about his size because of that.
He did say he was a kicker. So if you don't know that the kickers are not linesmen in their physical stature, then that's kind of on you. I feel like there is some responsibility. He was upfront and honest about that.
When they met face to face, it was very apparent that Hannah was disappointed.
Was Nick thrilled too? I mean, I feel like he was saying
he did
stuff.
A better job of covering it up for the cameras. If that was the case,
if he wasn't as into it, he did a better job of hiding it. He did crack some jokes about her wearing heels, though, because then she was basically the same height, if not a little bit taller than him.
Hannah had concerns about her body and what it was going to be like to be in person with her partner who didn't know what she looked like before they met. And it was very apparent when they did the reveal that she was very uncomfortable standing next to him, that he was a lot shorter and I think slimmer than she had expected him to be. Not even I think. She admits that because she thought he was going to be like a big football player.
So since she feels physically inadequate next to him, she has to then berate him through their relationship.
Let's say there's nothing wrong with Hannah's appearance.
No.
At all.
No.
Before or at the reunion.
No.
Whatever. But the problem was the way she handled things from here on out. Because there was definitely, I feel like Hannah spent a lot of time trying to prove she was superior to Nick.
That was what it ended up devolving into. That was the basis of the relationship, was how Hannah strikes me as the type of person who feels like she's very secure in who she is until she's met with opposition. And then it becomes a very quick race to not build herself up more, but to tear that other person down.
And look, there were a lot of things that happened while they were living together that made Nick look kind of stupid on camera. When they were cooking together and he didn't know how to cook pasta, although...
Well, he didn't know how to boil water, which is a
He looked in the refrigerator for the pasta.
Yeah.
I do think there are maybe explanations for that. There is pasta that lives in the refrigerator.
Yeah, when your mom made some and there's leftovers.
No, there's refrigerated fresh pasta.
There's nice, high quality pasta.
I wouldn't know, but I've seen it in the store.
Yeah. But the boiling water and not knowing what temperature to set it at, that's kind of a rough one to get around.
No, but I think that she had spent so much time already to that point where she had made him feel inadequate for everything that he had done. They had had those conversations about cleaning and how much she cleans the apartment and that he doesn't clean enough in comparison to her. Everything was whatever he did was not enough or not right per her standards.
Taking the trash out, taking the dog out, all these different things that he needed to show initiative for, she didn't want to have to tell him for, which mental load is a whole thing.
It just seemed like she had been quite rough on him already before they got to the point of cooking together.
And he was afraid then, because if he went to boil the water and it was not to Hannah's standards, then he was never going to hear the end of it.
Like, I don't think I would have done well putting myself in that situation of having someone critique every move that you make.
Well, you begin to question every single thing that you do, because if everything I do is wrong, then what I'm trying to accomplish in this is not going to work. So how do I do it in the way that leads me down the path of least resistance with this person who would be
conflict?
Yeah, who would be upset with me over how bad of a job I'm doing.
She also came for him about the fact that he still lived at home with his parents, which, okay, but a lot of people do that now. It's like, that's not unusual. I did think that it was very strange when we met Hannah's family. It seemed like she was looking for her parents to express some concerns about her getting into a relationship so quickly or to have objections to Nick. And when they didn't, she seemed disappointed. And she also said a few things throughout the season about having been on her own since she was 18. And it also made me question, like, did she have issues with Nick because of the fact that he had this safety net of his parents and this support from them in his mid-20s still that she didn't get like the day she turned 18 onwards?
Yeah, but and does it feel like, I feel like there were a few times where she was challenging him on it because it almost felt like he was taking advantage of his parents, where they were paying his phone bill, they were paying his car insurance, and there were these things that he didn't want to bring up with them because, hey, if they're going to keep paying it, then I'm cool with that, if they're okay with that. But that's kind of an independence and an adult thing that Hannah was trying to guide him into, of saying, no, this is stuff that you need to be responsible for as an adult.
Okay. I just think that's something that happens a lot of times when people get married, that there's like, all right, that's it. That we're not going to be on your parents' phone bill anymore or sharing car insurance. I just don't think that that was as big an issue as the way she came for him about it. That it became a reflection of his character and something being inherently wrong with him.
Well, that was even the warning conversation that happened too when her brother came over, and then he was talking to Nick privately about how difficult Hannah can be sometimes, and just a lot of that interaction too seemed to be kind of where Nick was starting to lean on the side of, Hannah seems to be able to dish a lot of this, but she can't seem to take a lot of criticism, specifically when we're talking about that sort of feedback that she's always ready and available with. Doesn't seem to be as responsive when it's coming back her direction.
I think he summed it up best by saying she can be really cruel. She just says cruel things. And everyone in her life seemed to agree that she can be really mean. We heard it from her family. We heard it from her friends. We heard it from other cast members on the show.
A few of her friends, I mean, her friends seem to be more on the Nick bashing side.
I think that she had given them reasons to come to those meetings prepared to rip him apart.
Which that is what is upsetting for me about the reunion too, because I feel like that was a lot of Hannah's pre-show work that went into that, of gearing people up and getting people fired up to be mad at Nick. So when he starts saying things or denying things, she knew she was going to have to defend a lot of the horrible things that she said to Nick during the season. So at the reunion, she had to come out guns blazing because she needed to put Nick on the defensive, so then she wouldn't have to be held accountable for anything that she said during the season.
I totally agree with that, because she has done many interviews where people have said things to her about her delivery, and it seemed like that's all she came prepared to say, was just, I could be very direct and I've been working on it. But she recently had an interview where someone asked her if she could ask Nick anything, what would it be? And her question was, why did you let me speak to you that way?
Which is Gaslighter 101 of, and if you're wanting to wonder more about like where Nick's head was at in that relationship, where you're double guessing and questioning everything, you literally have her asking, why did you let me treat you that way? I don't know. Why did you treat me that way?
I just find her to be abusive, verbally abusive to other people around her. And I don't really think that saying you're direct is a great defense of that behavior.
That, and then the manipulation that goes along with it too. So a lot of the stuff that she was bringing to Nick for their breakup, because then they didn't even get to the wedding planning stages too far along in that, because she had her list of stuff that he needed to work on, but then she was still sounding like the bad guy in a lot of this breakup. So I think she was realizing that in some of those conversations at some points.
At the reunion, though, she drops a bunch of info on us about things that I guess were happening off camera, which happens to be, I think, the infuriating part of the season for people, is that most of the conflict or the interesting things that people would have wanted to see happened when the cameras weren't filming.
Well, a lot of things, yeah, that we have nothing to base off or nothing to react to because we're just being told about it after the fact.
So Hannah had that list when she broke up with him, but now we're finding out Nick, too, had a list of goals that he had left out in a notebook on the counter that I guess she snooped in and read at some point.
Which, doesn't that call more into her character of like, if you're going through somebody else's notebook to dig up stuff to throw at them at the reunion? Because then Nick even explained that too, because that was stuff that he wrote out because it was set for a date that was before they were going to film, but he had actually written that goal out. He had gone to that future date. He was 90 days prior to that and wrote something in for that date.
It was a list of 3 90-day goals that he had for himself, one of which was to become the most famous person to be on Love is Blind.
Because he couldn't even think of 3 things to put down on the list, allegedly.
Look. I'm going to say, I have questions about that whole thing.
And just from the way that we saw him interact in the pods, too, it was making it seem like...
It was a performance.
He wasn't there with the best intentions.
Now, I guess what I would say to Hannah is, why even bring that up? Because he has failed at becoming the most famous person from the season of Love is Blind because you looked horrible and there was much more conversation about your behavior. And then we had, who could compare to Tyler's mess?
Yeah, and I feel like this is where a lot of Hannah's manipulation was starting to come into play, where then she geared up Monica and Marissa, who maybe had doubts about Nick's intentions to begin with. So finding that list of those 3 things and then fanning those flames just bolsters their position against Nick and keeps them in that friend group a little bit tighter knit because now you have a common enemy.
Also, I got to say, Marissa's judge a character and Monica's judge a character, not great.
This is what I'm saying. Is like, if you're looking at the people that they've aligned with, then I think it leaves a lot to be desired.
There was the other story that he was not attracted to her. That apparently he was telling other people in the cast that Hannah was a grenade, and yet he slept with her. I know that was part of the conversation online, that it was something that she was upset about. I don't know, not great. But why aren't those the things you led with if you are using that now as an excuse for your behavior and how you spoke to him? How come you never brought it up during the show filming?
Yeah, and I mean, like, I will say, I feel like when Nick was just outright denying that he had said those things, and then there are multiple people who are saying, no, yeah, you told me that off camera, you mentioned this, you referred to her in those ways. At that point, you do just have to own up, I think, when there's that much going against you for it. So I feel like that's where Nick kind of messed up, was Hannah had him on one thing, and then that's all we talked about for their entire segment.
Well, and he denied a lot, which then other cast members backed up as having been the truth.
Yeah.
So that didn't look great for him.
That's what I'm saying, is once you're in that position, it's better to just get it all out on the table, right, Garrett?
I still think, though, at the end of the day, that Hannah looked worse on TV.
I think that she probably won some people back over with the reunion performance, though. I really do.
Right. And I think Nikki D is going to fade into oblivion.
No, because it makes Nick look like a liar. So then it takes away from his credibility for the whole season. Because then now you can look back through the entire season through a different lens of, oh, what if Nick is a liar?
I do agree with that, because I know that for quite a bit, I had respect for the fact that he didn't say anything negative about her, despite the way that she was treating him.
That was the big difference.
It seemed like she took the opportunity to bash him every chance she got.
And then she was wondering why he wasn't coming back at her. Because I think that was...
because he thought it made him look better.
Well, I know. And I think that was like part of her breakup. She was trying to get in a fight with him, and he wouldn't even fight her on that. It was just, okay, agree. We should probably, it's not working out, and then we'll just call it here. So it was still just kind of this amicable split that didn't really amount to anything super dramatic. So I feel like that was just frustrating for Hannah, because I feel like her whole thing is that she just picks at people until they blow up.
I don't think this worked out very well for either of them. Hannah has a group of people who hate her online now because of how she acted and even the things that she's said as recently as like interviews from a week or two ago. And then Nick didn't do great in the reunion. And I think he's just going to, again, like fade into oblivion of reality TV history. And that'll be the end of it.
He couldn't decide if he was going to be face or heel. So it was hard. He came in kind of as a heel, but then he ended up being a baby face when he paired with Hannah, because then Hannah was treating him so bad.
What would you say about Ramses and Marissa?
Ramses, I feel like Ramses gives himself a lot of credit for not a lot of stuff. I think he is presenting as a very progressive, forward-thinking, thought-provoking person, and underneath that, there's a lot of stuff that's just rooted in very outdated mentality.
Traditional and patriarchal
yeah.
ideals that he's not even aware that are in there affecting him.
Yes, and then he has no way of communicating that effectively as part of his relationship either.
Well, I knew something was wrong with this man from the beginning, and that was proven correct when we saw his outfit at the reunion. Was it giving steampunk? I know.
What did I call it? Oh, I called it Michael Jackson Beetlejuice, I think is what I referred to him as.
Michael Jackson starring in Beetlejuice?
No, like Michael Jackson as Beetlejuice. Yeah, like playing Beetlejuice.
I hated it. I don't know what it, like and then the little brooches were a little much. The completely net shirt that he had underneath. You know, it was something Tyler from Teen Mom would wear to a reunion.
Oh, yeah, probably.
They're shopping in the same stores.
Yeah.
Marissa looked great.
She has to. She can't not be okay. I don't think she's ever allowed herself to be less than functional.
I guess the first piece of conflict that happened between these two was the disagreement about Marissa having been in the military and Ramses's views about the U.S. military and activity they engage in. I guess that's the best way to summarize it. I thought that would have been like more of a sticking point, especially because she was talking to Bodhi for so much longer. Like it was between him and Ramses for her.
Yeah.
And he was also in the military and seemed to have a lot of conversation with her where they connected on that very thing. And then the person she chose had objections to her time in the military.
Yeah, and I think he was playing that off or downplaying it as part of the pod conversations, but then afterwards it seemed to be more of a serious sticking point for him. And I don't know if it was because there were times where she was talking about how she could see herself as maybe, you know, enlisting again or doing something. I think she had something as like a career path or something like that could still be military. And he wasn't really about that. He wasn't on board with that in the same way.
No, and I think that's a great example of a trend we saw with him throughout their entire time together, which was they would have a conversation where it seemed like they very obviously were not on the same page. Like everything on Ramses's face showed that he was not okay with the conclusion of the conversation.
Yeah, whatever point she was making, you can see him shutting down and just kind of disassociating a little bit and checking out and then just agreeing with her at the end of it.
But it never seemed like they were genuinely on the same page.
No. So that's why Marissa was so confused and why this felt like, oh, this came out of nowhere. What were all these doubts? He was so sure. I think Ramses was terrified of hurting her feelings. So he was not being honest with her at all the whole time. And all of these big things that were coming up that he had to keep dealing with, every time it came up, he didn't address it.
I have to be honest. I think this man is a very fickle person.
I feel like he isn't honest with, he's not being forthright with anything, because then even like the reasoning during their breakup was very vague, was very generalized. I think it was for the camera.
Our energies just aren't really aligned.
I think it was for the cameras, but then even some of the examples that she had listed off on social media afterwards or had confirmed was like, her singing in the shower was like a deal breaker for him.
That's what I'm saying. I think he's fickle. I also was not here for the conversation about birth control.
Well, yeah, that was a whole other thing.
I know
the singing
that
in the shower. I think that's more than just being fickle. I think that's just. I feel like that's an answer that he can point to because it's too scary to point to real reasons.
Okay,
his real reasons. Maybe birth control is one of them. That was a big one.
He did try to address that at the reunion, that it was a highly edited down conversation and that we didn't see the entirety of it. And Marissa agreed that she didn't have issues with what happened in the course of that conversation. So I guess they made him look a lot worse. But
I mean, to an extent, but also at the same time, if that's your stance in that felt like another one of those conversations where Ramses was hearing things that he didn't want to hear, so he just kind of shut down and sort of agreed with things still.
You know what? I think that was the most pushy conversation that they had, though, because she was trying to explain that she didn't want to even really be touched because she wasn't feeling well. And she was really like run down and stressed out from filming and going to law school and traveling back and forth from DC to, I forget where she was, somewhere in Maryland.
But then he was still hanging all over her during that conversation.
Yes. It was more than just the conversation about having kids and what seemed to be a disagreement about birth control. It was not hearing what she was saying and responding to that. He wanted some type of guarantee that, okay, this is like a one-time thing though, right? This isn't how our whole lives are going to be because I'm not going to do well if you don't want to have sex when I want to have sex.
I think Ramses and Tim have a lot of similarities as far as how unrealistic their expectations are for relationships with human women.
I say fair to that. The only other notable thing I think about them was Marissa's mom. She did make an appearance at the reunion, and she was not here for his shit.
His balls. She was here for his balls.
She was here to collect his balls.
Yeah.
She did promise she would confiscate.
That was the plan.
It didn't happen. I think that her mom's a lot of bark and not a lot of bite at the end of the day.
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, I think whatever conversation she did have where she was going to try to convince him to stay with her, I think she realized, I don't know, maybe he was more honest with her about the reasons or the disconnects and the things like that, because then she did come to appreciate that, yeah, it is probably for the best that they ended up going their separate ways.
To everyone else, this is a task. But to you, this is opportunity.
Switch to Boost Mobile and get the Coach Prime Moto G5G for $29.99 at boostmobile.com. The Boost Mobile network, together with our roaming partners, covers 99% of the U.S. population. Moto G5G for $29.99 when you switch with a new Unlimited Plus or Unlimited Premium plan activation. Online only. Taxes extra. All prices, fees, features, functionality, and offers are subject to change without notice. Visit boostmobile.com for details.
When the energy is high and the music is right, pushing past your limits becomes that much easier. Take a reggaeton run or strength class on the Peloton tread, and you'll quickly see why these are the workouts you've been searching for. Every day brings new challenges from expert coaches who train and speak the same language as you do. Level up your workouts with Peloton Tread. Find your push, find your power. Peloton. Visit onepeloton.com.
All right, Tim and Alex. You brought up Tim.
Oh, yeah,
and
Tim.
his similarities to Ramses. I got to tell you, I didn't think that they were going to end up being followed because I was so incredibly bored by them in the pods.
The pods, it was all Tim talking, and Alex would just cry a little bit because Tim was always talking about sad shit and his siblings who had passed away and all sorts of stuff.
I got so weirded out when he kept talking about his sisters having passed away. And then it seemed like the thing he was looking forward to most about getting married was giving his parents a daughter again. And that whole thing just really weirded me out.
Yeah, there was like too much emphasis on that because it's okay to have that as a consideration or that's a big part of why you joined this particular show and are going this route in your search for love, that could be one thing. But I think it was just the general emphasis that was placed on it was a little strange, unusual.
More than a little strange, in
More
my
than
opinion.
a little strange.
Just the way he spoke about it. She referred to herself as a vessel at one point. And I was like, I think that you're right, that you're just a female, like you're a human spirit who is here to be part of their lives as like a replacement.
Yeah, or so, like a proxy. Yeah, sort of.
And I'm saying that in a questioning way because I can't really understand the thought process. But the way it was repeatedly expressed, it was a big part of what Tim was looking forward to in having a wife.
He was also looking forward to never having an argument. Never have. So like, this is where I'm saying, like, I don't think there was a full understanding or comprehension of what a relationship is, because there's this perfect idealized version of a relationship that seems to come up in his mind, where at the first argument that they're going to have, at the first disagreement that they have, that's not how someone who I love and who loves me should treat me. But you're going to have disagreements with people. Nobody's perfect.
No, they were the first couple to have an argument once they got to Cabo. And it seemed like it was a pretty bad one.
Well, and even just in Tim explaining it at the reunion and going back and talking through it, because at the time you didn't really see much. It was kind of like a follow-up to that conversation. So at the reunion, we did hear about the fight that happened where Alex was very distraught and upset. Her father had gone in for, I think there was like a medical rehab or something like that he was checked into. So she was very stressed out. She'd been going through this process with the show. They'd been filming. She was traveling. It was just a lot. So she had kind of a moment there, and she was having a nice little freak out, a little Menti B light, travel size Menti B.
She just needed to be left alone for a little while.
So this was where I got concerned, was when Tim was talking about, this is my fiance who's having a meltdown here on the floor of the bathroom in our hotel in Cabo, and I needed to help her. But I don't think what he realized was he was asking her to tell him what was wrong. He was asking her to provide him information so that he will feel better about this situation. That's not the time to do that. She is freaking out right now. So in that moment, I think the best course of action would be, what do you need? How can I support you in this moment? And her answer would be, I need some time. I need time to myself to process through this, because it's all happening very real right now, and when I'm not in a place to talk about it. That should have been respected, and then he should have given her space, taken time, done whatever, and I feel like that would have had a much better outcome overall. But instead, he was at her. He needed to know what was going on. How can I help? How can I fix this? What's wrong? What's happening? And she wasn't ready for that.
And what I noticed about Tim is that he likes to deflect a lot, because when they talk about that argument, the thing that he spends the most time focused on is that she called him out of his name, which we did find out what it was, that she called him a little bitch instead of Tim.
Yeah, that's not his name.
And that she put her hand over his mouth.
Which that would set me off.
I know.
Personally.
It is physical contact with your partner in a situation where things are escalating is not great.
And I would say in the exact same way that Leo taking a sip out of a drink, it's a breach in etiquette. Let's just put it that way. It's a personal boundary that's being breached.
Alex did try to explain that her intention in doing that was to, I guess, quiet Tim down, because he did not want to be filmed having this argument. And yet he was being so loud that it was very likely going to attract the attention of the producers and the camera crew who were outside the door. And then they would have come in to film it. I guess I could kind of understand that. I don't know. It wasn't on camera, so we really don't know exactly how it went down.
Can't say for sure. And I mean, I guess it's easy for Alex to kind of present that as the reasoning for it was, I was trying to protect you. I feel like they both do a good bit of deflecting. And the reason why this thing happened that upset you is because you did this thing that set me off. So it's kind of, they're always throwing blame at each other, and then nobody's really getting anywhere. So it just seems like a general incompatibility thing for this couple.
They like bounced back from that fight very quickly though, and it seemed like things were going pretty well, which was why it was so shocking when they ended up breaking up, because it just kind of came out of nowhere where Tim sits her down on the couch and we find out that Alex took a nap while his parents were visiting, and that greatly offended him. And instead of talking to her about it and saying, this is not something that I appreciated and could you spend more time with my parents, it was, that's the end of us. I just don't see this working out.
That was so disrespectful. I don't think we can come back from this, which I feel like Tim was just looking for an out. He didn't really get over their fight in Cabo.
I think he didn't get over seeing her apartment.
Well, I mean, yeah, that was a danger zone too.
Well, let me tell you, this man who started the conversation at the reunion about how he had no animosity, he has been posting a ton of shit leading up to this episode, the reunion episode being dropped. And one of the things that he talked about was the state of her apartment, and that apparently Alex had gone to her apartment to clean it up a bit.
Oh, no.
Before they showed up there. And he was trying to say, I covered for her, in saying that, you know, they just showed up here. She didn't really expect that they were going to be filming there.
Well, and she had
but
said too
that
that
was a state of cleaned up.
Oh, boy. Yeah, because she was saying that she had packed and didn't have time to clean up before she left on vacation.
The closet that had to be what?
That was
4 feet of clothes piled up in the bottom of the closet.
That was a lot. That wasn't just an ADHD pile.
No,
that was different.
I gotta tell you, this is like there's something going on with Alex that we're at the state that we are.
So I mean, all things considered, I understand why this relationship ended up where it did, but I wasn't expecting.
I don't understand why it ended up where it did.
I do. There just, again, general incompatibility. I think the confusing part in Alex's whole thing was, why did you meet my dad, get introduced to my family, win them all over, and then break up with me the next day? That's where it's kind of...
that was weird.
That's a little much. We could have ended it prior to that. I feel like they should have just split it up in Cabo.
I just don't see how you come on a show like this and you could be a person who very easily writes other people off.
That's why I'd be terrible on this show. Yeah. I would never make it out of the pods.
It just seems like you have to be flexible. You have to be in a mindset where you're prepared for someone to not be 100% what you're looking for necessarily, that you have to compromise a bit. And the whole nap thing just really set him off.
Like you said,
it was, but he kept dwelling on it, even at the reunion.
He was hanging on to this stuff, everything. Like nothing is forgiven from Tim's standpoint. I think everything is just, it's still there and it's still very real, and he's still feeling disrespected from all of that.
Yeah, and that's actually a good point too. I think everything that happened just kept getting added to a list of things that you did to him that wronged him. And once that list got to be too big, that's when he just said, forget it. We can't do this.
Yeah, he strikes me as the type of person who keeps score, where he was, every time he did the dishes, he was checking that list off. I made this whole meal for your entire family when we came and visited with them. And now when my parents are here, you're off taking naps and I'm doing the dishes. So those were all personal attacks that you committed against Tim in your relationship.
I loved that they had to end their section with Vanessa just interrupting.
And maybe you guys can sort this out on your own time. Because,
maybe you should talk after this, because you guys have talked a lot.
Well, Tim has talked a lot.
Yes.
And man, the studio time is not cheap. So we're not going to keep burning up airtime with you guys here.
No, at one point they had to talk to previous season guests together at the same time, and instead of having them have their own moments. I think because Tim cut into the time that they had allotted for that.
Between Tim and Steven, yeah. A lot of hot air blowing on that side of the stage.
All right, the cash cow of this season, Tyler.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Robin. Okay, yeah.
Tyler and Ashley. Wow. I don't even know that there's a point to talking about the pods other than Tyler never brought up the fact that he had 3 children.
Okay, he never brought it up from what we saw. It sounded like they had talked about it when she was talking about it at the reunion. This is all stuff that she said that she knew about. But then I think there's more information that started surfacing because then that was something they agreed about. They didn't want to talk about on camera. So then they had to film scenes as if she was finding out for the first time, even though she already knew about this and they'd had conversations.
Okay, so then the whole thing irks me because we didn't get to see the initial reveal. And then we got a watered down version of the truth.
Correct. Yeah.
So I don't like that either, Netflix. Nick Lachey, Vanessa Lachey.
Specifics. Yeah. Well, because the more stuff that comes out on social media, the crazier and crazier the stories got.
The way he approached it on the show. So like you said, I guess he didn't want to talk about it. And he ultimately decided that the best way to speak about this was to say he had essentially donated his sperm to a friend. And that is the origin of his 3 children.
He's doing the Biz Marquee defense. Just a friend.
Now, the problem with that is the mother of these children denies that that is the case.
Yeah, because he was the stepdad who stepped up when his sperm donation then evolved into faux parenting with this good friend who now divorced their partner. And so he was helping kind of jump in to hang out with the kids every once in a while and stuff.
It's kind of a half-truth, what he said, because the friend that he helped out was married to another woman, so they wanted to start a family, and she volunteered Tyler instead of them going to a sperm bank or something.
Well, I think it was not even volunteered. It was that was the only suitable donor that was deemed for this process. Very specific request.
Now, her ex-partner has come out with their side of the story as well, and it gets even messier and more complicated because they believe that she got pregnant not by the turkey basters that they purchased online, but the good old-fashioned way.
The 90-day the other way.
I don't even remember that guy's name anymore.
Kyle?
Kyle, yeah. You got a good memory.
Was it Kyle?
It was Kyle.
I hope it was, because now you seem pretty confident too.
I don't know. Somebody could seek him for his services online.
Yeah.
Kyle, the sperm donator, is probably very easy to locate.
There's not too many of them.
Yeah, what did he call that?
Making deposits.
The deposit.
making deposits.
Oh, God. They could have called him. He does it for free.
Strangely enough, yeah.
Tyler did too, though. And so she ended up pregnant. They have baby number 1. Partner gets weirded out by the fact that Tyler's just like hanging around the house now. He's taking out the trash. He's seemingly spending a lot of time here.
Did you hear that, Nick? He's taking out the trash. Unprompted.
He's cooking pasta.
He's
doing all kinds of things.
He's boiling water. He's doing finances, paying cell phone bills.
Obviously, that caused a lot of tension between the mother of his children, and her partner. And that is why her partner left, because he did talk about how he stepped up because her partner left her. But according to her, she left because Tyler was, it seemed like, having some type of relationship with her wife.
He was an overstep dad.
At first, I guess. Then they went on to have 2 more children, a set of twins together, which she says happened naturally, that she was a little confused about her sexuality, that, again, he had been spending a lot of time there. He had moved into their place. They were living together.
It's a very complicated story. And so that calls into question how much of this was divulged, because none of that made it on camera, obviously. So this is all just from social media posts that we're hearing about this from some of the people directly involved.
It just seemed like you maybe didn't have to bring up the sperm donor thing. Just, I have 3 kids who I don't have a relationship with. That's the truth.
But then that makes him look bad. So he has to turn this around. This has to be something selfless that he did that was real good thing.
That backfired because this has been the biggest controversy that has come out of this entire season.
Seemed to be something that they were very quick to gloss over at the reunion as something they didn't really want to talk about. Strangely enough, it was all we wanted to talk about. So I really wish that they would have had a couple more questions, or we could have bumped some of these season 3 and season 4 alumni for a couple of baby mama interviews.
These two people got married. They're one of your two couples, successful couples this season. And there's this huge conversation going on about his children. I don't know how you just brush that aside. Another failure of the producers.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it was more missed opportunities.
I was disappointed in Ashley.
Was it? Yeah, like, is this a crew issue where they just weren't around for stuff? I feel like they were being more secretive about what they were talking about on camera. They knew the play. They knew what they were getting involved with here.
Ashley and Tyler?
Ashley and Tyler specifically. I think they were coordinating what they were and were not going to talk about on camera. Where you have Alex and Tim who were kind of hiding their fights and their disagreements for the most part whenever they could. And so that was kind of where it was lacking in production, was they weren't catching anything as it was happening.
I just think it's really weird. I understand that he's saying my kids' birth certificates are being posted online now. I don't really want to talk about it because there is like an invasion of privacy that's going on. I understand that perspective. But you came on TV and said that you didn't have any relationship with your kids. They don't know what you even look like. And that is a bold-faced lie. And those kids are perhaps one day going to see that you said that on television about them. So I'm just questioning how much this really is about protecting them.
Yeah.
Anyway, Ashley seems like she will just defend him to the end of time. She doesn't want to listen to anything anyone wants to say. She believes she knows the full story. And so I guess they will just live happily ever after together in the alternate universe that they live in with one another.
So that's pretty much it, I think, for season 7.
That is season 7. We found out that season 8 is coming, that they're going to be filming in Minneapolis.
It's going to be in the Sin Cities.
Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Minneapolis, St. Paul.
That got real. Oh, that was, let me take that again.
Okay.
Minneapolis, St. Paul. Nope, it's too late.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not working.
I got to watch Drop Dead Gorgeous again.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Let us know what you guys thought about this season. I mean, a lot of people upset about, just in general, especially Love is Blind purists, not really digging this season. I am very, very thankful, yet again, that we did not cover it episode by episode. I feel like that would have been very grueling. So I think this kind of general high-level overview, that was going to be kind of the way to go. I'm going to end this on a positive note. I'm going to thank them for not making the reunion 4 parts long, because I have just become accustomed to that with Sister Wives.
It was an hour and a half, which seemed like more than what we needed for this season, because there was some other dopey stuff that was thrown in there too from the alumni and stuff like that.
Will you be watching season 8, Corey?
I'll at least give it a shot and see if anything sticks here.
You know what I want to do next time? There are people who watch with the TV covered.
Yeah, they do. They do the pod episodes
you
blind.
You get the pod experience.
And then they reveal at the reveal.
I kind of think I want to do that next time.
Okay.
Something to look forward to.
Yeah, we could do it.
Thank you for listening. If you want to support us, the best way to do that is by subscribing to the podcast or leaving a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.
Be sure to keep the conversation going with us over on our Discord channel by joining our Patreon, patreon.com/survivingpod.
Stay tuned, share with friends. See you next time.
To everyone else, this is a task. But to you, this is opportunity.
Switch to Boost Mobile and get the Coach Prime Moto G5G for $29.99 at boostmobile.com. The Boost Mobile network, together with our roaming partners, covers 99% of the U.S. population. Moto G5G for $29.99 when you switch with a new Unlimited Plus or Unlimited Premium plan activation. Online only. Taxes extra. All prices, fees, features, functionality, and offers are subject to change without notice. Visit boostmobile.com for details.